without me clearing my throat. All right. Well, welcome, everyone. Tim O'Connor and Golf Spiritual Leader with you again. And Tim's dog, Fred. Isn't that weird? Don't you think that's weird that Tim has a dog named Fred and I work with a guy named Fred? It would be interesting if my dog's name was Tim. I've always liked, like, sort of human names for animals, like for pets. And, what, you can't hear me?
Just a little louder, pal.
No, dude, turn your headphones up. Like my volume's exactly where it's supposed to be.
My technology has maxed out. As soon as you started this, your volume went down.
Okay, well, that's because
folks, we're not bickering, okay?
It's because I was, I could yell like this if you want, but no one wants that for the next hour.
No.
Okay, well, there, I boosted my volume a little bit for you. Does that work for you?
It's just fine. I'll make do. I'll do. I'll be the martyr managing editor of this show. I'll manage.
Your voice and my voice, as we record them, are perfectly matched.
Maybe I'm just getting older. Maybe my hearing is starting to decline.
Well, no, and
now your volume just suddenly went perfect.
Okay, well, and part of it is what Zoom does. I don't want to explain this to the audience, but what Zoom does is when I have the music playing and we're talking over it, it starts to do something. So,
yet more of the edification of Tim's podcast.
And you can talk a little closer into that microphone.
Okay.
There you go.
There we go. Okay.
So, anyways, folks, this is how we do it. This is just like like a round of golf. Sometimes it gets started off, a little bit scrappy. You hit it there in the right rough. Anyway, welcome to the show. I was talking about dogs. I've always loved dogs. Names like that, like Stan and Freddie. And Fred had a dog named Billy. My daughter has a dog named Billy. When we were younger, though, it seems like when you and I were kids, every dog's was like, Champ and King and stuff like that. Remember?
Totally.
Like every German Shepherd name was King or something. And
anyway. I had 3 boxers as a kid. We always thought they were noble and regal. So their names were Duchess, Duke, and Rex.
See, there you go.
Exactly.
Freddie, though. Freddie's such a friendly dog name. I love it.
Well, he has the uncropped ears. Boxers back in the day always had the ears. So now I would take them for a walk and girls, young women say, "Oh, he's so cute."
Yeah.
Well, if you're single, get a dog.
Dude, I've been saying that for years. Because what it does, it really is, there's a psychological reason for it. And what it is it signals to women, apparently we don't call them girls anymore, even if they are. It signals to them that you're okay, that you're safe. When I'm out with Stan in Stan's golf park and a younger female human being walks by, whether they have a dog or not, they always like, "Oh, Stan," and I seem less threatening,
That's right.
Anyway, welcome everybody.
We've really started at a high level this show.
No, listen, I love the level we're at. Let's not even think about it. Let's thank our sponsors, Jonathan Wong Apparel. I'm wearing a warm-up jacket from Zero Restriction. Timmy's dressed. I'm gonna guess. Is that B. Dratty or Fairway and Green that you're wearing? Is it B. Dratty?
Number 1. Good guess. Yep. First time I've worn it. I had to even take off the little, cardboardy thing.
Hey, dude, what is that thing on the cardboardy thing? I want to ask you this. There's like what looks like a ball marker.
That's
what that is.
I'm hazarding a guess. It is. Yes.
Okay.
So now I got about half a dozen of them.
No, so do I. Anyway, they're really, really nice. What you can see there is Tim's wearing his polo. There's also Zero Restriction, Fairway and Green, EPNY, Royal Albatross Garb, and PRG Golf. That's what Jonathan reps. And of course, through the bag, it's TaylorMade. It's quite the experience. Tim's going to tell you about a cool experience for him and his son this week, getting fit at TaylorMade. But I can tell you from all the reports, everyone is loving these drivers. They changed the shape. Now they're changing the way drivers are constructed. The all-new Sim 2, built differently around a forged aluminum ring. All of it translates into distance, control, the twisty face thing. And I'm sure that's not technically what it's called. Anyway, visit tailormadegolf.ca to learn more.
You know what's interesting is that neither of us are what you would call gearheads, as some of the players on the university team say. I can remember being at a family reunion, and my cousin-in-law or whatever, Dave, he comes in to me, "Hey, what's the kick point on that driver?" I have zero idea. What's kick point?
Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff that I've heard of, and I somewhat, our old friend who used to be at TaylorMade, Stu Bannatyne, I remember having a round of golf where he tried to explain a few of those things to me, like, something that tips stiff or whatever. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Here, just do it to this. Make this do it.
I find that I might ask somebody a question like that, and they're about like 5 or 6 words in, and my brain is already off somewhere else.
This show is. I guess we should get started. I thought we would kind of ease into the whole, debriefing.
Well, I'm going to interview you.
Yes, and I've got a couple of. Today I will continue delving further into the pathways to par. I've got some great takeaways, I think, for the everyday average player. And but I did want to start with that experience because I really thought it was interesting. You and your son Sean, who is an interested golfer, and you took him. Was this so? And I think this is a good conversation because a lot of people who have never gone through what Sean has gone through, and you and I have, and we're not talking about some kind of male ritual. We're talking it's just for a second there.
Nothing that it didn't involve shaving or duct tape or having to go across a crowded intersection at midnight.
Yeah, we're not talking about some voodoo initiation. We're talking about getting fit for clubs at the TaylorMade Fitting Center. And just what that's like for the average person. It's pretty mind-blowing, actually.
Oh yeah, he really enjoyed it. He struggled a bit with. He said that as often happens with Sean's a novice. He was a hell of a hockey player, but came into golf late. So it's really his second year of really being into golf, and so as a novice, his game comes and goes. So he said he got there about 15 like great shots, and then just topped a bunch after that, and intermittently hit some good shots. So that's always kind of a tough thing for people when they're being fit. It's like, oh, how am I hitting them? But
yeah,
these guys, this guy Jared, you'd think I know his last name, but Jared, wonderful guy.
Jared Kick Point is his. He would know what a kick point is.
Jared Flex Kick Point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Great young guy, golf professional, and he just made Sean completely at ease. And so Sean didn't get the full meal deal because with COVID, they're not doing the thing that makes you look like Dieter Sprocket. When they put the little thingies
with all the diodes and the lights and things.
Yeah.
But they use, they have the GC quad there from Foresight. They got the screen, all the info. So Sean thought it was really, really cool. And it was just fun dad and lad trip into the big city and talking and all that stuff. So it was wonderful.
The reason I thought it was important to talk about the fact that he is a novice golfer, and a lot of times I think novice players don't think they should get fit. But at whatever level you're at, a TaylorMade fitting experience will make whatever level you're at better because you'll have clubs that are the right length, the right lie angles, all those things. At Sean's stage, it's not about are you going to hit these longer, but they're just going to be more comfortable for him to hit them as best as he can at whatever level you're at.
Yeah, he's going to even from just like standing over the ball, more comfortable because the lie angle is going to be perfect. The club is going to lie nicely on the ground. It's going to be the right length for him. Sean's 6'1". I mean, big kid, gym rat.
And the importance of getting fit is really important. And here's a good story. So I gave him my hand-me-downs from the last couple of years, stiff shaft. So last year he comes home, he'd broken his driver right just above the I don't know what you call it, where the shaft goes into the driver. I told you we're not much of gear people. Where the
Okay.
shaft goes into the club, that little space, it
Yes.
broke there.
The what is that thing called? I was going to say it doesn't matter what it's called because obviously neither of us know.
Yeah, and then
it broke.
about 2 or 3 weeks later, 3 wood. And I asked this this client of mine, Rob, who we had on our show. Now he's a gearhead, and he said, "Well, your son, he's 25 years old, strong as an ox,
Yeah.
and he probably has amazing hand speed." And he said those shafts are just too light for him. So
That's right.
TaylorMade, Nick was at TaylorMade was nice enough to send me some X shafts, and so far Sean hasn't broken a driver yet.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a sentence you're not going to hear from Tim or anyone our age. Oh yeah, I cracked my driver. Oh, did you really? And did you hit it on something? Yes.
No, I
did.
dropped it down the stairs.
That's right. It's not going to break from hitting a golf ball anymore. That ship has sailed.
Oh, that was one of the things, just real quick, the hand speed
Yeah,
thing.
man.
That's what Jared said. Sean had incredibly fast hand speed. And
Well, he's a hockey player.
totally, yeah. So,
It won't take him long. And I would say that most of the people I know that came to golf later, and I mean not, in their teens or early 20s, if they played hockey and over any other sport, I have found that leads them to be better golfers eventually because they understand compressing something.
yep.
If you played tennis, that's fine. You understand movement. But if you played hockey, there's a real correlation into how the shaft of the stick bends into the ice to produce the thing to go up. Whereas a lot of people who didn't play that sport, you can see they try and lift it.
Yeah, help it.
Whereas hockey players have a sense of pushing it down to make it go up, which is one of the things I think is, you and I have been playing golf for 100 years. We forget that is sort of one of those fundamentals. Like when my girl Rachel started playing a couple of years ago, it's almost weird to watch somebody want to lift up. But it also, when you look at it through a beginner's eyes, it kind of makes sense.
Oh, it totally makes sense.
It's kind of what you want to do. You want to lift up.
Well, you don't understand how, it just totally makes sense that I'm going to have to help this thing up off the ground.
Right.
So I want it on a nice cushy line. I'm going to come in like this and scoop that thing up. And that's why golf is just so hard for so many people.
It's the hardest thing in the world.
All these contradictions, hit down, ball goes up.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is that usually it's been in the past, I'm interested in your take on this one, is the harder you hit the ball, the more crooked it went. But now people are seeing that swing fast.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go as crooked. But I think what it is generally is what people, when they tend to hit it hard, it's like they're hitting it with their big muscles. And it's like their shoulders and that kind of thing, as opposed to body rotation and all that good stuff.
Well, what I was saying, when we were younger, the equipment lent it, it was about swinging smoothly.
Yep.
Because and again, I don't want to make this about gear, but a persimmon driver with a Bellata ball or an older version just produced so much side spin.
Yep.
Which is why, in sort of the modern era in the 60s and 70s when Palmer and Nicklaus in their prime, very few people were like Trevino, which were like big cutters of the ball because it really did diminish how far the thing would go, which is kind of hilarious now when you look at most of the top players in the game, how they talk about hitting a hard cut because that goes 340, yards in the air. That didn't exist technically in the time of Jack and Arnie and Lee, which is why it was sort of odd that Lee Trevino came along and hit that sort of block cut all day long. That didn't go very far. Anyway.
You sure know how to find it.
Well, and that's the thing is, so yeah, it's interesting now that kids like at Sean's age, you're just taught to hit it as hard as and fast as you can, because because of the modern technology, there's not as much spin put on the ball.
Yeah, and I've always held to the adage with kids is, and I learned this from people like Ben Kern. Have them hit it as hard as they can, and then they can learn how to find it.
That's right.
Because if you don't get that from an early age of pow, go after it, you won't learn it as an adult.
Well, famously, that's what Jack Grout, was basically, I'll say basically again. That's what Jack Grout told a young fat Jack, just swing as hard as you can. And that's why Jack, when he got to be a strong fat kid, he hit it so long. That's why, when Bobby Jones said he's playing a game of which I'm unfamiliar, it was about the distance he was hitting it. It was a game Jones recognized strategically, segue alert, but it was the distance at which Jack Nicklaus could move a golf ball through the air.
Mm-hmm.
And anyhow, so here we are. It's Wednesday, June 30th, while we're recording this.
Yeah.
And the last time we got together was the Friday before the Glencairn Senior Geezer Invitational.
That's right. And this is where I want to just basically take over here, okay?
Well, I'm going to set you up because coming up, Tim's going to talk to Golf Spiritual Leader about another recent victory. And then after we break that down, I'm going to I've got a little thing prepared that I'm going to actually interview you. Isn't it ironic? I have some questions prepared.
Okay. I have some questions.
Do you want some music? Some segue music?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
How about a little Talking Heads? And now, again, don't worry about the volume because Zoom is going to depress the music here in a second.
Hey, I'm fully confident. I'm in your hands.
All right.
I'd just like to say welcome, everyone, to the press room of the Senior Club Championship at Glencairn. I'd like to thank all the volunteers, certainly our professionals, for putting on a great event.
Yes.
It was a tough one. We had some weather, but everyone got through it really well. And, we're just delighted to have in the press room with us our champion, Golf Spiritual Leader, also known as Howard Glassman. And so we're tickled to have you here, champ. So, as I'm not Amanda Balionis, I'll do my best, but wow, 3 out of 4 years. How does it feel?
Well, thank you, Tim. I echo your sentiments. It was a well-run weekend. The conditions were challenging. Saturday, we had some wind, but Sunday, as you could see out there, it was chaos. It was there was a lot of high scores, but I'm tickled. It's funny. I've had so many conversations with you and other people in my golf circle over the last 24 hours, or 48 hours, I should say. But I feel great about it, sir. Thanks for asking. And but when it's over, it's almost like a little bit anticlimactic because you sort of you work hard to get it, and then when it's over, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's cool,
So this means I don't ask the question what this means?
Yeah, you could. But no, I'm only being partly facetious. It's almost like on the ride home, and as you have said, and we have said on this podcast a million times, like when you don't have a good round, no one gives a shit, and when you have a good round and win something, yeah, there's a flurry of people that wish you well, but in the end, I came home, I had, Chinese food, I watched 30 Rock. It was pretty much, you know what I mean? It was I was excited, but the takeaway was it didn't change me. I was still, same, dopey guy. And anyway, so I feel great about it. It was a great, it was one of the, another thrill for me.
Absolutely.
I've also, I'm just going to give you a couple of funny little stats. Of the 5 club championships I've won, this is the fourth stroke play one that I've won, and the third time for me that I've won a club championship, including the one at the National, in a playoff on the first hole. And I wanted to say that because later I wanted to explain how having that experience, what it did for me. Okay, so please continue. It's your press conference.
I want to take us to the playoff and what was going on in your state. Were you feeling nervous? Was the heart pounding a bit? And if it was, how did you bring it under a semblance of control? Great
question.
I'm a professional question asker. Of course, it's a great question.
It's funny you say that, because sometimes when Fred and I are doing the show and somebody we're interviewing will say, "Oh, that's a good question." We once in a while will go, "Yeah, I thought so. That's why I asked it."
Yeah, well, it's just like you've been a broadcaster for 40 years. I've been a journalist for 30 years. That's what we do for a living. Yeah. Ask questions. We hope that every once in a while it'll be a really good one.
If you want me to go to the playoff now, that's fine. I'll tell we'll do the Stephen Covey thing. I'll begin with the end, and then we'll come back to some of the takeaways from, being in the state of nervousness and such.
I'm just trying to get to the stuff that our listeners are gonna like.
No, I get it.
They're going to be able to grasp and go like, "Oh yeah, wow! I could imagine my heart would be pounding."
So I'll tell the playoff story, and then I want to tell a couple of there's a couple of moments in the round and in the tournament that were significant again for people with who have listened to us. Well, a couple of cool little nuggets. So I had in the day so I start off the day with I'm 4 behind. First round, I shoot 75, and the guy that's leading shoots 71. He's a very nice player, but 71, was an outlier for him. He's a 4 handicap, and shooting 71, 1 under par in a tournament is amazing, but it's not his huge. Shooting 75 for me on the first day was kind of around. I got my hang on a second, decade. I've got my decade stats up. And my season scoring average is 74.75 something. So I shot my average round. So I had a sense that if I'm in the last group on Sunday, and, if I can just hang in there, maybe I have a chance. So I end up, he fades down the stretch a little bit. And somebody that finished ahead of me was tied up at the number that I was at. And I had a chance to win in regulation at about a 20-foot putt, and I hit it on line, maybe a titch too hard, and it hit by the way, here's a little fun thing I didn't know. The thing that lifts up the ball from the cup in ClubLink, that black apparatus that you
the doohickey, I call it.
Yeah. Do you know what it's called? I found out it's called the Mully Cup. I'm like, what? Because
maybe they'll sponsor. Maybe that's we got a lead on a new sponsor.
Dude, I'm on the first tee and Marshall's like, and blah 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 blah, and I'm touching the Mully Cup, and I said, "What did you just say? The what?" I thought that was amusing. So my putt in regulation to win, because at that point I knew I was tied, and I wasn't trying to bang it 4 feet by, but I did want to make sure it was a nice uphill putt. And I wasn't worried about it going too far past. And I might have been if without a cup and if without the Mully Cup stick thing, it might have actually gone in the hole. But here's the thing: in front of everybody, my ball, hits it and bounces out. So here we go. I'm in a playoff. Hit a good drive. I hit a decent second shot that I thought went further than it did. And in fact, couldn't find the ball initially because I was looking about 40 yards ahead of where I thought it was. And somebody who was watching went, no. They came all the way out to find my ball for me. Decade, first thing, winning is a matter of luck. And I had some bad luck in the tournament, but that was good luck. And not only was it good luck that the person helped me find it, but it was in the fescue, but it was in the kind of lie in the fescue where, and we've all heard broadcasters say this, where the back of the ball was exposed. It was a kind of like when you look straight down, it didn't look great. But when I put my club behind it, I'm like, I can hit the ball. And I had about 85 yards to the green. He was about the same, but on the fairway. I hit my shot, and it couldn't have come out. You know, that kind of shot where, you know, it's like, oh my God, that's perfect. It was perfect contact, and it went up high in the sky, and it just cleared the bunker and then bounced up to the cup, like 6 feet uphill putt. And, you know, everyone's going crazy. And so I walk up there, and as I told you the other day, the reason this moment was significant for me is while he was lining up the putt, my heart is pounding. Like all day long, I will tell you that I was having that, you know, weird feeling in your sternum area all the entire day. And that's another thing. It's not like I was going along and everything was great. It wasn't. I was, you know, it's like every day there's struggles in your life and in your golf game. So I'm waiting for him to, he's, you know, circling the putt. So I sort of turned away from everyone, and I sort of do this thing where I kneel down and I stretch my back a little bit. And that's what it looked like to anyone, what I was doing. But what I really was doing was I closed my eyes. You know, when we talk about, and you and I have been advocating this for years, the reason that you meditate, I meditate, and good players do is under pressure, you want to have something to anchor yourself. So there I was closing my eyes and doing my, you know, sort of, you know, breathing, and very slowly and very calmly trying to get my heart rate to go down, because I was obviously excited and nervous and, you know, what would happen. And so rather than worry about that, I sort of did my little breathing. And then after a few seconds of that, and still in the crouch that I was in, I opened my eyes, and I told you this is absolutely the truth. I looked around. It was about 6:30 at night, and the wind was still howling. And but the skies looked, you know, it was sort of like had been kind of cloudy and sunny all day, and the sky looked beautiful. And I just said to myself, you know what, Howard? If nothing else, at least be grateful that you got back to this moment. Because I thought to myself, a year ago, I'm on the same green. I'm in a playoff. I had a chance to win. And I said to myself, if nothing else, win or lose, like if this guy sinks this putt, I thought to myself, win or lose, I was going to at least be acknowledged to myself that, you know, this was kind of cool that I, you know, all the stuff that I did that got me back to this point. And then I got up and I read the putt. Here's how windy it was. I don't know if you guys do this at your club, but we were allowed, because in Club Link, because of COVID, you're not allowed to touch the flag. Mm-hmm. You're not allowed to take the flag out or the pin out, but you were allowed if you're, and I'm going to tell you, Timmy, without being without hyperbole.
Prone to hyperbole.
Thank you. It was the second windiest day I've ever played golf there.
Oh, wow.
Like and we know it's Blue Springs is windy.
Glencairn is super windy.
The windiest I've ever played, except for one other time. And so we were allowed to have, you know, like while you were putting, I call it awning. I took my putter and I rolled the flag up in the grip so I could hold it for you. You know, when you got, you know, 4 or 5 feet from the hole, it was distracting.
Well, that's what you did as a caddy, as a kid. You would hold the flag so it didn't flap around.
So I had the presence of mind. I was lining my putt up, and I was that flag. He missed his putt. I'm sorry. He misses his putt. He had a good putt. He hit it about, I'd say, like maybe 3 feet by, but it was the kind of putt that he gave it a chance. Mm-hmm. And I actually called Mike Marshall over, our head pro. I said, Mike, could you just hold the flag for me? Because I just didn't want that flapping noise while I made this, or tried to make this 6-foot putt.
That's cool.
So I did that, and I hit a putt that, again, winning is a matter of luck. I hit a putt, to be honest with you, that half the time might have missed. Like when it was a nice putt, as soon as it left my putter, I knew it was going to make it to the hole, but it was a little more uphill than I guessed, and it was starting to break. It was a right to left putt inside the cup, and it started to kind of slow down and break to the right, and it just caught the hole and went in. And much screaming, fist pumping. I swore a couple times to myself. Like I was so, I'll tell you the truth. I was so tired, as I told you on the phone the other day.
Oh, I get it.
I just didn't want to play any more holes. I didn't. Like I just wanted to sink it, because I don't want to go, and I don't want to go back to 18.
Really? I gotta go all the way back there.
You know, no, and I was like, at one point on the 17th hole, there was a bunch of people following us, including my coach, Paul. And I just drove by him. He sort of nodded at me. I just said, Coach, I'm fucking exhausted. Just exhausted. And this was on 17.
Yeah.
Anyway, so so that's the bare bones of, I won it and it was great and I was excited. And I was proud of myself and all those things.
Yeah. So again, well, official congratulations,
Thank
GSL, on our podcast. As he said, we had a debrief earlier in the week, but stepping out of my reporter role back to coach role, if you will. So many good things that our STDs could take away from this, and that is, and one thing I want to make an observation is that we don't, when we're in that state of something's at stake that we really want or is exciting, it's like, you don't even need to be thinking. Like, you didn't say at all that you were thinking about hoisting the trophy and what people would say. No, your body and brain just realize there's some big shit going down here. And you get excited. And like you say, you talked about that feeling under your sternum and your heart's going because your body's getting ready. But what you were talking about there was you had the awareness that you needed to ground yourself. And I'm thinking that's a really good takeaway for our listeners, is whether you're on the first tee playing with your boss or whatever, or in a club C or whatever, is grounding yourself and breathing those are just basic, swing thoughts 101 stuff in terms of how to calm yourself down, get your heart rate down. But the other piece too is the gratitude piece. And why that's really important is that when we're in a state of gratitude, we're fully in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
We're right there. We're not in future. This could happen, or thinking back to this, or regretting something, rumination. We're right here. And that's why, as you said, this is something we've talked about over and over again on this show, is that regardless of what's happening, when we're in a state of gratitude, it's just a place of peace, of calm. And if you get right down to it, that's where we can get into flow and perform well.
Yeah. And I think it's, I can't remember when it would be interesting to go back and find on the podcast when we first mentioned meditation. Excuse me. But I remember the guy that I'd been doing yoga a long time, but I never really considered meditation until Doolin set me up with these Muse headbands.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And because when Paul's told me, there's a way that, meditation can help your golf game, I'm like, I'm in. Let's do it. Sure. But I can tell you, having practiced now in meditation for some time, including both Saturday and Sunday morning, I have a meditation tape that this guy that we had on the show, Scratch Attitude, Kent Osborne, because what he did for a living before he became a golf guy is he was an executive coach and a meditation kind of guy. And so his meditation tape that I listened to probably 3 or 4 times a week, but during the tournament, I listened to it every morning because it's about tying gratitude into your game. And the 2 things from his tape that I took away was the gratitude piece. But one of the things he says on the tape is, what else? And this is such a great thing for a guy like me, like egomaniac. He says, you've done this, you've done that, you're this, and you've done, you've won all these things. What do you need, Howard, that will finally make you feel validated as a golfer? And on the first tee of both Saturday and Sunday, I wasn't looking for I wasn't looking for any outside, nothing outside of me needed to tell me I'm a good golfer anymore. And if I'd have shot 87, 85, I still would have found a way to frame it that has nothing to do with my ability as a golfer or as a person.
Exactly.
And
your identity.
And more than winning, I've been first now 4 times in 5 years. The one time I was first and lost, I lost in a playoff, ironically enough. Mm-hmm. But the reason I'm proud isn't that I've won or whatever, or I've transcended, is that my behavior has become so much different around the game than it was in the days of, golf hell, or even a year ago. Like, let's not forget, as one of my daughters reminded me. So she called me after the Saturday round. She said, how did it go? I said, that was pretty good. She said, so you didn't feel like punching the inside of your car? I went, no. I said, that was so long ago. And it wasn't. It was only a year ago because, yes, I had progressed up. I'd been working on this for a long time, but I'd still had flashes of not understanding the game. And in a minute or two, I'm going to ask you a series of questions that are based on some of the questions you ask your golfers. But just to wrap this part up, so it wasn't that I was just proud that I physically can golf well enough to win a tournament. It's that at no point in the round did I want to punch myself in the face. And win or lose, that's a much happier spot for me as a human being to be in around a game that occupies, as it does you, so much of our time.
Yeah.
I love that reaction. Yeah.
I just know that there's so much. Well, we've said many times, it's like there's so much good stuff in there to mine. But what I think is really important when we talk about meditation, a lot of meditation, as Dan Harris said, has such a bad PR problem. People don't understand it whatsoever. They think that, it's about making my mind go blank, or
not at all.
No, it's more about just what am I aware of what I'm thinking or what's going on in my head, and in just like observing it. And I think that what it does for us, meditation, is allows us to develop the skill of awareness of saying, being in a position of, I use this example all the time, being in a slow Tim Hortons drive-through and, finding yourself going, what the hell is he ordering everything on the goddamn menu? And then realizing, oh, wait a sec, me getting all upset is not going to make this line go any faster. That is the skill of awareness. The skill of awareness is, wow, I got a putt here and my heart is pounding out of my chest. So, or I'm thinking of something or whatever. And it's being able to, oh, I realize what's happening here.
Yeah.
And then you can respond to it.
I wanted to, there's a we've talked about this recently about how one of my goals for this year, and as it has been for the last couple of years, was to learn and to continue to understand that every individual shot is not a personal statement on my ability.
Exactly. Oh, yes.
And I think a lot of golfers listening can relate to that statement because we get so upset over an individual shot thinking, I used to, famously talk to you that night after men's night about, I try so hard. Why do I keep three putting? What's wrong with me? As opposed to going, sometimes, and again, why I love Decade is because, and there were moments on the last 9 holes that I had a 45-foot putt, a 35-foot putt, a 30-foot putt, tough putts that because I wasn't trying to sink them, which I learned from Decade, no part of me was trying to get that 45-foot putt to the hole other than just have it gently start, So I've learned those things, but the best part of Decade for me is the expectations part. Knowing that bad luck can happen and that if a ball bounces here or there, the variable eventually will even out for you. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is on the second hole of the last round. I don't know what it is about this hole, but in 4 rounds of tournament golf over 2 seasons in the club championship, I've made a 2 double bogeys and a triple bogey on this one hole, or I would never have been anywhere near a fucking playoff. Anyway, so, but I want to describe the hole. So I double bogeyed it.
So you felt fucking pissed off at this hole, but you didn't want to punch your face. You wanted to punch the hole.
No, I'm just thinking about it in retrospect. On the first day, first round of the club championship this year, I double bogey it. Second round, and I still shoot 75. So the second round again, it's howling wind and it's into the wind, and I pull hook my drive into some haggis. I punch it out. I'm not at this point. After I found my ball, I'm trying to make a bogey. I punch it out nicely. I hit this great 3-wood about 50 yards from the green. This is in the second round, and I've got a 50-yard little back in your stance, kind of low, punchy, lob wedge, kind of a low. And I love this shot. It's a kind of a no-brainer for me. But the problem is the pin is literally a step off the back of the green.
Ouch.
And when I hit it, I thought it was perfect. Like I'm looking to hit it 10 or 15 feet, 2-putt, make bogey, see ya. But the ball bounces, checks, and then it goes sort of a little bit dribbly. And instead of being on the fringe, I'm literally 12 feet from the hole, but the ball went into the rough, and it was in one of those lies where it's sitting in the middle of grass, and there's lots of grass behind it. So I don't want to chip it, because I knew it's the kind of one you're going to easily scull. So I do this little thing, I think we've all done it before, where you take your putter, put it back in your stance, and just kind of bounce the putter onto the ball. But it's the kind of shot where, I could have hit it close.
Idea.
I have no idea.
Exactly.
I hit it 15 or 12 feet by the hole. I lip out that putt, and I make a double bogey. Now, an older version of me would have instantly gone into, why did this happen? Golf hates me. I used to say that. Why does golf hate me?
I love that.
I used to say it as a joke, but it was what I was in. I was saying it because it was feeling it.
Totally.
But I walked away from that double bogey again on that hole, again knowing that I had the rest of the round to play. And I thought, I recognized what had happened had nothing to do with the shot I hit into there. I did everything I could. In fact, on my mental scorecard, which I kept, I did all my stats both days during the round, because that's how I play golf now. I wrote down, out of 7, I gave myself a 5 out of 7. Because on 5 of those 7 shots, I gave myself a 6 out of 7. Because the drive was the only shot that I wasn't fully there for, that I was trying to steer it. I didn't let it go. But the rest of the shots, I tried my best, and I was fully focused on every one, and I made a double. So fast forward now, it's the 19th hole. I'm in a playoff. I find that ball, as I described it. I had it could have been horrible. It could have been the kind of lie where I would have had to chip out sideways, and now I've got to get up and down to make par from 85 yards. But I got a good break. I got the kind of break that, my point being that in any round of golf, any season of golf, those breaks even out. But the way I used to interpret them, and my older brother's going to hear this and love this, I reframed it, and that's what it was. I got a chance to look at the double bogey in the light of, well, sometimes that happens. Yeah, it's a drag. It's happened on the second hole of the last round of the club championship. But as you would say to a client, it doesn't matter when it happens. It's how you react to it. It's how it's how our Doolin friend would say, it's how you manage your state. And that's available to a 15 handicap or a scratch golfer like me. All of that is available to everyone who plays, because that has nothing to do with your golf swing. It has to do with the way you view what happens to us when we play. Please think your reaction, sir.
Well, what I love about golf is that it's the metaphor, if you will, for life. And it sounds so cliche, but cliches are cliches because there's truth to them. And you think about that, if you take that attitude to the rest of your life, how things become just not as dramatic, not as being caught in a story or the oh woe is me pit of despair that we often go into. Stuff happens.
Yeah,
we can sometimes we make mistakes. And it's another AFGO, learning, the fucking growth opportunity.
Yeah, man.
But when we get caught in a story, we're caught, and getting out of that requires a lot of hard work. So when we're able to be in this place of like, oh, this thing just happened. I mean, I remember you telling me this phrase. I remember you described hitting an off the world shot and going, well, that just happened.
Yeah, that just happened.
What a great approach, really, because that's what happens, folks, in life. We get good breaks, bad breaks. Does it have any bearing on our worth as a human being, our identity, how the world views us? Who fucking cares? It doesn't matter.
but why our listeners and myself and yourself, why we get why under pressure, or we'll say pressure, under a competition, or you're having a good round, or you want to impress somebody, under any kind of, outside influence, it's easy to default to the story we tell ourselves. Oh, woe is me. Why did that happen? Why couldn't the ball if that ball had just literally been 3 inches closer, I would have been able to putt it, 2-putt bogey, whatever. But what experience has given me, it was a few years ago when I started saying, oh, well, that just happens. They're all just these little, sort of building blocks on the way. As I was saying to my friend Dan, he's not a golfer, but I said, what I used to think the idea was to build my golf swing so that it was anti-fragile. But at some point, we've all understood that your golf swing it's always going to be good or bad, or some days are better than others. But I said, I've come to realize over the course of this podcast, that what can be anti-fragile is your strategy, your state management, and your ability to score your ball. And what I think a lot of 12 and 8 and 18 handicappers, and even some lower handicappers, what they don't understand, because I didn't, is that and this is what I wanted to ask you. The phrase being good at golf, I used to think that meant you were a good golf ball striker.
Mm.
And this is where I wanted to tie it into what you often ask a first client, or you first have a client. Tim will say to them, we've talked about this. You ask the question, why do you play golf? And then you have a conversation about what that reveals about the person. But I would ask you, when you hear the phrase being good at golf, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
For me, it comes to, now I've been doing this for a while. I've had a lot of different experiences. So this is going to sound really terrible to some people, but because of the experiences I've had as a coach and as a player, I operate at a different level of consciousness. So it doesn't mean I'm better than, it just means I've had some experiences that have opened me up. So when I think of when people say being good at golf, it means that they're things like consistent, and that they control their golf ball, and that other people will see them and go, hey, he's a good golfer.
Mm-hmm.
That type of thing. A lot of it is around that external validation. And to me, there's zero value in applying a judgment such as being good, because that's what that is. That's a judgment. Really, a good golfer could be someone who could say is a 29 handicap, and they go out and they have a great time every day.
Yeah.
They have a wonderful time with their partner. They get some exercise, and they hit some shots that go where they may want them to go. They make some putts. Anytime we're into any place of this is good or this is bad, it's like getting caught in the story.
Understood.
We are in delusion and fantasy. We're not in the real world.
But I would say that most people would answer that question, and I like your answer. I'm not judging it. I'm just saying most people, when they think of, okay, so let's just say that we know that people judge all the time. And again, as a guy that's played the game for 50 years, it wasn't until somewhere in the last 4 or 5 years that I've come to understand, especially this year and last year for sure, that and I know I jokingly introduced the Pathways to Par triad of skills, strategy, and scoring, but I used to think that a good golfer, or I wanted to be a good golfer and seen as somebody that can hit a golf ball better than you.
Mm-hmm.
But then I look back on the life I had in competition, and I think about the guys that I used to think, wow, I hit it way better than he does, and they beat me all the time. And the one guy in particular that I think of now, and I almost sent him a note, but there's a guy that I looked up to at the National for years. His name is Dan Partland. I've mentioned him on the show because if you saw him hit a golf ball, you'd think, that guy's not that good. And he was a scratch for years at the National because he hit a weak baby, like not even a good strong cut. He had sort of this dinky cut. He was given to wildly blocking it off the tee. Like he really wasn't a very good ball striker, but he won 9 9 club championships at the National. Like on the wall there, his name is just covered in little leaves. It's crazy. And he used to say this to me, Humble, if I hit the ball like you, I'd never shoot over 70. And I used to think that his skill set of getting up and down is what beat me. But what I realize now is that his strategy is what beat me, because he golfed his ball. He understood his limitations. Like, I don't know how many times I've said to people, they would say, oh, I just keep hitting this little, cut. I go, well, then aim left,
Exactly.
Just aim left for today. Stop trying to fix it. On this golf game, just aim lefter. And that was Dan Partland's game. He just kept it in play, and when he didn't, he would chip out sideways, and he would take his chances around the green and never made more than bogeys and rarely made penalty shots, etc. All the things that, has been teaching people. We went to that seminar in 2017, you and I, and when Fawcett said, stop trying to make birdies, stop trying to sink putts, don't two-chip, and try not to get too many penalties, that's doable no matter what your handicap is. Because if you're a guy that shoots 90 all the time and you can make some doubles instead of triples, you might shoot 86 all the time. So that's what I mean about most people, myself included, felt that being a good golfer was somebody that could hit good shots. And I think that being a good golfer now is somebody that whatever level of flushing you've got going that day, you can still, like those guys on the tour, they can turn a 75 into a 71 because they also remember, oh yeah, I get up and down. I work hard on that part of my game. And that's where the real sort of game is. But you and I, listen, when we first met, we talked for hours about every gadget we've owned, every lesson we've taken. Like if there was 2 men, I don't think I know 2 other guys that sought salvation in the motion as much as you and I did. But there is no salvation in it.
No, absolutely. So I think it's strategy that's how you take your game to the next level. So many people come into this game, and it's kind of like if golf gets its hooks in on you, and you take lessons and you practice, amazing the how much better you can get at playing this game. But in about 3 years, you plateau until you learn course management and strategy, like you were talking about. That just makes such a crucial difference. And that's been such great learning for me, and I think our listeners for the past couple of months. But I also think that so much is important is around your mindset, and that your value as a human being does not go up and down with the golf shots you hit. It has zero to do with you as a person, your value in the world, and who you are really at your essence. And I had a very interesting conversation with a fellow yesterday who's been through some pretty interesting experience in his life. He would be, quote, viewed as a success in the business world. He's also had some tragedy in his life. And we're talking about golfers who really impress us. And the one that came to mind we thought was Jordan Spieth. And the reason I say that is that I think that Jordan Spieth, he's always been a grounded person. Yes, he came out, he's always been a successful golfer. When he's 14, he's beating 18-year-olds. He comes out early 20s and wins 3 majors. Yeah, he's just come out of a swoon. But I think what's held him together and why he's come back is that he's always been grounded. And I think that in the Spieth family, what was most important thing? The well-being of his daughter, of their daughter and Jordan's sister, who in the vernacular would be regarded as challenged. So what was the most important thing? Her. And I think that kind of thing is an indication of what's really important in life, as opposed to whether I can hit a golf shot that meets my expectations, whether someone will say something, what my handicap is, and where I end up on a plaque in a clubhouse. It really has zero to do with that. And so I think that when we can use our awareness, and we all get caught in a story, for goodness sakes, everyone does, I do all the time. But it's that ability to go, oh, wait. This isn't life or death. This doesn't determine whether I'm a good golfer or I'm a choke or a flub or whatever. I'm just playing this game. So this is the last thing I'm going to say on this, is that when we invest meaning to golf shots, that's when we're in trouble. It's a golf shot. If you're able to hit a golf shot and let that go, and yeah, you could say that was a good shot or a bad shot, sure. But again, as soon as we attach meaning to something, and then we're into story, and then we're into fantasy land, we're into our heads, and that's really, we're not connected to reality at all.
I totally agree. And the thing is too, like, I know sometimes we bounce around saying, well, you know, even if you're a 15 handicap, you can learn. But it's not just, and what you said at the beginning of that, I love that, you know, course management is a phrase we've known, everyone heard, but I don't even know how to say what I'm about to say, so it's going to be awkward, but there is only that. Call it course management or call it strategy or call it the game. But that is, and listen, I'm as guilty as anyone. I missed that completely. In fact, I look back at my 30s when I was a pretty good golfer. You know, I played in the Ontario Amateur. I played in the Canadian Amateur. I won the club championship. And I think to myself, how did I do that? Because I had no fucking clue how to play. I didn't. I was just athletic enough, and I knew enough that an amount of the time I could be counted on to shoot a decent score. But the thing that all golfers want, they say they want, we say we want consistency. But back to my original hypothesis, when golfers say that, they think it's swing, that they're trying to be consistent. And as we've established, you can't. What you can be consistent in, like I'm going to play today on our men's day, and I don't know what I'm going to shoot, but I know there's a couple of absolutes. I'm going to make the best decisions I can, and I won't do anything within my ability. Because again, I'm a human being. I know I will minimize the errors that I make. And on that point, I want to tell you a quick story and how I learned something. So are you okay with me just going on, or do you have anything you want to say about that?
I'm listening. Because I know that following this conversation, there will be a gift in it for me and our listeners.
Okay. So people start watching the club. I'm in the last group, so a bunch of people started coming around to watch us. About 4 or 5 holes to go. In fact, it was so sweet. One of the guys that, I don't really know him that well, but I was walking up to the green, and he just said, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Good." He said, "Are you okay if I watch?" I'm like, "Sure, whatever you want to do." So I'm not so after 9 holes, I asked, we had our head pro, Mike Marshall, followed us all the way around just to make sure of any, he wanted to make sure that it was the championship, blah, blah, blah. And it was nice of him to do that. But I would sort of nod at him, or he might say, "Good shot." But after 9 holes, I was 5 over after 6. And then I went birdie, birdie, bogey, and finished the front 9 shooting 40, which, by the way, was about even par for the day. So I felt pretty good. So I walked by Marshall. I go, "How am I doing?" And he says, "You really want to know?" I said, "Yes. Now I want to know at this point." He says, you and Brad are tied. So-and-so is a couple back. I go, "Great." So after the back 9, I'm on the 17th hole. And as I'm driving to the 17th, I go to the 17th hole and I do a quick calculation, and I know I'm 2 ahead of everybody. And I hit a weak drive, pull hook. I was trying to hit a little low bunt cut, and it doesn't cut, and it stays up. And the reason I want to tell you this is the mistake I made. I got 185 yard into a left to right wind to a left pin. The wind is howling off the left. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll just choke down on a 4-iron. And my goal was to hit it somewhere up to the right, which was the right idea. But it was a really hard shot. And it was, again, I've got a 2-shot lead at this point. That's why it's important to know. And I hit a weak sort of push cut. It leaves me with about a 20-yard pitch shot out of some heavy grass, and I make the cardinal mistake of 2 chipping.
Oh.
I just don't swing hard enough, and it goes up to the top of the green, and it comes all the way down a shaved bank. Then I have to wait while we go and look for the other guy's ball. I've just made a huge mistake. Then I chip it up to about 8 feet, miss the putt, and make a double bogey. Now I'm tied. I say to Marshall, "Okay, where does that leave me?" He goes, "You really want to know?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, You and a guy that's finished are tied now. So I know I either have to par or birdie the last hole. If I bogey it, I lose. So I want everyone to know that, because I was aware at that moment and still had the presence of my mind and body to hit a great drive on the 18th tee. Anyway, so we all know I go on to win in a playoff, but I didn't have to be in a playoff. So a bunch of people are watching, including my coach. Hang on a second. This guy's at the door. Hold on.
This is what I love about podcasting at our homes. Knocks at the door. The dog goes off. Oh, it's just kind of fun. But I am really, really looking forward to how this story turns out.
Order this, Dan?
I didn't order anything. Sorry. Is that breakfast? Or is it the UPS guy?
No, it was somebody ordered. I feel bad for the guy because somebody ordered some food and he thinks it's here, but it's not. Okay, so the guy watching this is my coach, and then after the round's over and we're sitting in the parking lot, everything's over, the day's over, I'm excited. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. And we start talking about that hole. And he says to me, what did you hit there on that second shot? I said, I was trying to choke down in the 4-iron and hit it over there. Stan, stop it. And for the first time, listen to him. For the first time in all of this rigmarole that went on where I made a double bogey, I had 185 yards to the green, but I only had about 130 yards to get over. There's a hazard sort of thing.
Yeah.
And he says to me, why didn't you lay up? And it stopped me in my tracks.
Yep.
I said, what? He said, dude, all you needed to do was make a bogey and you'd still have a 1-shot lead. But until that, he said that to me. And again, as ascended as you think I am, the takeaway for me was so profound, because I'm like, you're right. Because I could have hit that 4-iron, believe me, again, left to right wind, ball way below my feet. Pin is left. I got no chance of getting it anywhere near the pin.
It's a 4-iron.
It's a fucking 4-iron,
Exactly.
and I'm vibrating.
Yes.
I got a 2-shot lead. All I got to do is not die in the next 30 minutes. I win this thing again.
Exactly.
And when he said to me, why didn't you lay up? I just looked at him like, it was so interesting at that moment. I thought it never, now the good thing about experience is it will next time.
Totally.
All I had to do was take out a 7-iron, plenty of club. That's my 160 club. So easy to hit versus a 4-iron. I would have, popped it up about 40 yards short of the green, 30 yards maybe. I would have had a nice lie, not in the rough, in the fairway. I could have hit it 30 feet from the flag, 2-putted, and then had a 1-shot lead on the last hole, and that par would have been enough to win. The point is that in that moment, I didn't have the presence of mind to think of that as an option. And for everyday play in golf, the more options you can think of, because as part of the pathways to par, what we want to do is make bogeys when we're in trouble, and I was in trouble. To be clear, I didn't hit a very good drive, and it left me in a very awkward spot. So in effect, I've already made 1 mistake. Now I've made 2 because I put myself in a difficult lie. Now I make 3 because I double chip it, and making a double bogey at that point was really all I could do. I could have stubbed that 3rd, 4th shot, and it would have come back. The whole thing could have been over then, but not if I have taken 7-iron and laid up short of the green. So that's what I want to say.
So we joke about you ascending, and that you've
ascending.
enlightened and all this stuff. But what your story reminds us is that, oh yes, indeed, we are human. As I think it was Shylock in Merchant of Venice, cut me, I bleed.
Yeah,
What I mean
exactly.
by that is that particularly under pressure, we revert back to old behaviors and patterns. It just comes with having lived, whether it's 3 decades or being in your 7th, as you are. I know that sounds hard, but you are.
I know. It's okay.
But it's so hard. That's why this whole thing around being aware of what's happening as opposed to being boom in my head and reacting is so important. And so now you have had that experience, you'll learn from it. And that's why I'm trying to struggle with something that's a great metaphor that would make me sound profound and impress everyone.
But you forgot it?
Yeah, or I just couldn't come up with it. Is just experience is the greatest teacher. It
Well,
really
and
is.
this new sermon that my daughters talk about me, and that Howard, Daddy's got what's his new sermon? My new sermon for them is that in order to get experience, you have to have experiences. Now,
Yes.
the reason I mentioned that hole, because, again, if you're a golfer like I am, and you think a 185-yard 4-iron into a howling left to right wind is a shot you can pull off, well, maybe I could if I was just playing with you, me, and Ronan. But there's a different. Here's the way I used to. I would have looked at that shot in this manner. A few years ago, I would have hit that shot and thought, I'm bad at hitting 4-irons off downhill lies. But
Isn't everybody?
isn't everybody? Exactly. And I would think there was something wrong with me and my golf swing, and I just didn't practice enough, and I should go to the range and practice hitting 4-irons off, all that shit. But in actual fact, and you've used this term recently, and I love it, to be in flow means hitting a 7-iron instead of a 4-iron. And I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot less stress, and you and I have both made this point. There's a lot less stress hitting a 7-iron than there is hitting a 4-iron. And less stress allows you to be more in the flow of things, because if I had looked down and saw the loft of a 7-iron, I would have had such more, because somewhere in my body, I knew that was a 10 out of 10 shot. But a 7-iron off that lie, that's like a 4 or 5. It's just a normal shot. I could hit it out there anywhere I wanted, And with the kind of adrenaline I had, I probably would have hit it closer to the green than I could have imagined.
Yeah. Hey, I want to ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
We had.
Could you ask it into the microphone?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We had a great young guy on our show a couple times, and he's, oh boy, he's a manager and also a caddy for a PGA Tour player. Dang it, can't remember his name, but anyways, we talked to him about the whole thing of looking at leaderboards or not.
Yes.
And so just some people would say they never look at leaderboards, but you wanted to know where you're at. So explain sort of why you thought that was important, that you where you stood.
Well, after 9 holes, I just wanted to confirm because I was playing with the leader. And at one point on the front 9, he was 7 ahead of me. I can do the math. He's 4 to start, and now he's 3 ahead of me on this 9. I'm 7 behind. Mm-hmm. And I kind of clawed my way back a little bit. But after that double bogey, I just wanted to make sure, did I need a birdie to win?
Okay.
Or would par put me into a playoff? And I also have enough experience, I felt at the time, that knowing it wasn't going to freak me out. Because I basically knew I was 2 ahead of our friend Mike Bondi, who played very nicely. In fact, he bogeyed the last hole, or he would have been part of the playoff. So I knew that double bogey tied me with Mike. So I already knew I was tied. I just wanted to know if there was anyone else ahead of me, and in fact, there was a third person tied at the same number as Mike and I. And that's why. Now, but for the rest of the round, I never looked at the numbers. I never watched where I was. And but the reason I wanted to leave on the double bogey story is it's a great lesson that in the middle of this round that I was, playing pretty, I would say, excuse me, I shot 79 on Sunday and I shot 72 yesterday. And I'll tell you that 79 was harder than was a better score than that 72.
Completely.
It was so much a better score. It's hard to even quantify, not just the degree of difficulty of the situation, but the degree of difficulty of the day, the weather itself, right? Yesterday, I played a much longer golf course. I played Copperhead at Rattlesnake, which is about 6,750, almost 6,800 yards, but there was no wind, very little wind. So it plays fairly short for me. you're not trying to hit 7 irons 120, you know, or you're not hitting 9 irons 170. So,
Right.
but that's 79. I was proud of it. And I really wish I hadn't double bogeyed the 17th hole. I really wish I'd made bogey and could have just kind of chunked my way down the 18th, hole. But the reason I bring it up is that in every round of golf, I had thought of all the different things I could have done. But until Paul said to me, why didn't you lay up? I just never thought of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's what we do as golfers. We see a situation and it's like, okay, here's what I got to do. And that's why PGA Tour and LPGA Tour players have caddies. So the caddy goes, well, wait a sec. There's this option as well. And that's
great point.
That's why they have caddies in many ways. They're not just camels. They're there to make sure they think through things and, oh yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And usually and I think, I've worked hard to be my own good caddy, like to go over the options. But as Paul and I talked about in the parking lot after the round, all I really needed to do was to not make a double bogey.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had thought that at the time and thought, okay, Howard, you don't need to do anything special here. Just make a bogey from this point. Like, look at it like I'm 185 yards from the green and I'm going to lay up on this par 4. I have 4 shots ahead of me to make a 5. And, as I tell my brother David and my brother Steven and all my sort of guys I talk to in the world of golf, that, saving that one shot or parts of a shot, the more you can do that, that's how it all sort of adds up to lower scores.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I thank you for your counsel. I don't really have anything else. I mean, there's a million great things, and it's been, it's exciting, and in the end, though, it's like I'll go back to golf today as I did yesterday, and just be like, okay, well now, what's the shot here? Like my golf swing yesterday felt pretty good. I felt good about how I was hitting it, but I still, I was 1 under on the 18th hole, and I smother hooked my drive. On the 17th hole, I killed my drive. One of the best drives of the day, made birdie. First time I think I've ever birdied the 17th hole on Copperhead. It's a very difficult par 4. And I'm feeling good about myself. I'm 1 under par on the tee. And of course, I smother hooked the fuck out of it. So that's because that's golf,
Yeah. And even though you're GSL, you're still human.
Yeah. And I thought, isn't that hilarious? Way to smother hook this drive. Because a little bit of excitement seeped into my body, thinking, you know what? I shoot under par. Here's what I thought. And again, I'm a dick. I thought if I shoot under par in this course, first of all, that's awesome. But I also knew in the back of my mind that I needed 1 lower score to make, what happened happen. And I knew that I was going to, I didn't know what the number would be, but I knew that, if I finished under par, my handicap would drop to that place that I wanted it to be.
Yeah. So
for
you
as
won't
long
say
as
it.
we've been doing the show.
So I'll say it. Yeah, you put in your score. You shot 72, and you put in the number, and boom, it came up that it was a .09, correct?
0.9. Yep.
0.9, which means plus handicap. So.
Yeah, for 6 years we've been doing this podcast, and I've been saying I want to be a scratch golfer. I want to get down to 0. But as my buddy Charlie Fitz said yesterday, so how does it feel? I said, I don't know. I thought it would feel different. I thought there'd be banners. I thought there might be at least a cake. There's nothing.
No, well, you know, it's the same thing. So you win your senior club C on Sunday. The numbers for a day or so, hopefully it continues. You hit this milestone, become a plus handicap, but then you have to drive home, and there's somebody who won't let you
That's right.
into their lane.
Don't you know who you're blocking? Oh, I know. No, I know.
Yeah, and the kids at the back shop, they still ignore you. You know, life goes on.
I don't think it's a plus handicap. I think, basically my handicap now, and I did the math. I went on Golf Canada, and I said, what is it against, my home course and whatever. And so I'm even at a 1.2, I was sort of a 0, but now I'm officially a 0. And I sent Scott Fawcett and Lou Stagner a note saying at the beginning of this season I was a 2.2 because my handicap kind of went up like everyone's did, because I started sort of last year I was a 1.9 or 1.8. I said at the beginning of April or whatever I was a 2.2, and then I put this score in today, and this happened. And Fawcett wrote back, and he sort of quoted that tweet, and he said, I've been telling you guys that if you follow the decade strategy, and this is what he said, it's actually impossible not to have lower scores. It's impossible. And I know I've been talking about it, but I will say this for anyone, no matter what your handicap level is, that this thing has shaved the little bits off each of my categories of play to the point where, I would have been pretty thrilled shooting 72 at Copperhead a couple of years ago. But it wasn't, not that it wasn't thrilling, it just didn't seem to be that big a deal. And I don't say that to be a dick. It's just you can shoot your lower scores without it being too much excitement. I didn't hit that many amazing shots. I just hit a lot of okay shots. I hit a couple bad ones. Like I say, I smother hooked my drive. I hit a couple of good ones. But in the end, it's just, can you just mitigate your 3 putts? I only had 1. Penalty shots, I had none. 2 chips, none. And after the only one I 3-putted was 55 feet. That's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, finally it happened. And again, I got to go back to golf today, and I could shoot 85. Because it's golf.
Absolutely. Yeah, you never own golf. You might rent it for a bit, but
I love that phrase, and I want to finish on that thought. You can own your golf game forever. You just can't own your golf swing ever. I think when we say those things, you can't own golf. Well, that's not true. You can. You just can't own. You can't predict your golf swing day to day. My shoulder hurts a little bit last couple of days, like the outside, my rotator cuff.
The only golfer who I honestly think that Mo Norman is the only player who I ever saw own his game
golf swing.
But then again, the thing about Mo is that he won, I think it was something like close to 60 tournaments. So those are like 2-day and more events. It's either 17 or 18 hole-in-ones.
Shot 59 a couple times.
Yeah, at least, I think it was at least 3 times, 60 about 4 or 5 times. Anyways, the guy could obviously golf his ball. But when I watched Mo hit balls, he hit them off ranges. So I didn't see Mo play in tournaments. He never, ever missed a shot. Never. And he could step on a ball and then, hit it, the thing would be submerged and hit a driver and still hit it dead solid perfect. But the thing about Mo is that I didn't see him in tournaments. But from people who saw him play, they said he owned his swing. Ken Venturi, I interviewed him, and he said that the reason he got called pipeline is it used to be that in the old days the main irrigation pipe would go straight down the middle.
That's right.
of a hole, and Mo would hit it straight down the pipeline every time. So hence it'd be called Pipeline Mo. But it would have been interesting to have been able to see Mo. Obviously, it's total conjecture. I talk about fantasy every once in a while. This would be total fantasy. Is that we didn't get to see Mo in, say, the U.S. Open against Ben Hogan, against Jack Nicklaus or Bryson DeChambeau. So it's hard to say if he would have owned his swing under that championship pressure.
Well, I would say, it's funny because I stumbled upon this the other day on this platform called TikTok. Somebody has started putting up snippets of Mo Norman talking about the game.
I bet you it's Todd Graves. I bet you it's
it might be Todd,
sure.
but first of all, to your point about owning your swing, Tiger Woods said that. He said, there's a famous interview with Tiger talking about Mo, saying Mo's the only one, maybe beside Hogan, that ever owned their swing. But I found these TikTok moments. They're about 45-second clips of Mo talking about the game that we're talking about. He had a real grasp of it. In fact, the guy I played with yesterday, a guy named Jamie Cavanaugh, also a very good player. We were talking about some of these strategy things. And he quoted this Mo quote about how, and you probably know it. It's that one where Mo said, most people play with hope and fear.
Right.
Hope it won't go bad, fear it will. You know what I mean? Like, he had a lot of stuff
Oh yeah,
on the
totally.
mental side of the game that just blew me away. Like, he had a real sense of the game, not just, and everyone thinks of Mo, myself included, as the greatest ball striker that ever played. But you can't shoot 59 4 times unless you understand variance.
Exactly.
Like, I guarantee you, Mo didn't shoot at every flag he could, because that would make no sense, even if you were the straightest ball striker of all time. Because, you know, there's always a little bit of variance, even in Mo's case, even if it was a couple yards. So, yeah, I was gonna send you one of these, but it was really interesting, Mo being interviewed about the mental aspect of the game.
Oh yeah, he found, I'll say like almost like religious fervor around that part of the game. He, let's save this for another time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because we're already at sort of the Swing Thoughts best before date.
But what I shall share, the one Moism that I absolutely love, and you can take this to all parts of your game. It connects with what we're talking about. Mo said to play with an alert attitude of indifference.
Yes,
I thought that was one of just a beauty.
Yeah, I was really blown away. If you guys, or if you have access to TikTok or even YouTube, just Google some of this stuff.
It's all over the place.
It really is something else. Thanks to Jonathan Wong, JWApparelinc.com. Everyone looking good in all these different brands. And thanks to our friends at TaylorMade Golf. There's the ball, there's the irons, there's the driver, and it's all there for you at TaylorMadeGolf.ca. If you want to hook up with Tim, as many of our Swing Thought nerds have availed themselves, including our buddy Bondi and others, O'ConnorGolf.ca. And, of course, Humble and Fred shows next week. We're back on Tuesday at humbleandfredradio.com. And, again, thanks for your time and patience today, everyone.
Way on down south.